The cat's eerie stillness before the wall seemed unnatural, as if sensing something hidden within. Soon the wall would reveal a mystery so unexpected it would change the town forever. Kingston had always been a quiet town, the sort of place where everyone knew everyone, and the pace of life was unhurried. With autumn casting its amber glow over the trees and a gentle breeze whispering through the streets, Tessa Johnson felt the familiar sense of peace as she sat in her backyard. The leaves crunched beneath her shoes, and she watched them drift lazily through the air, finding their way to the ground. The sights and sounds of the season brought her a certain comfort, a reminder of the years she had spent tending to animals and people alike as a veterinarian. Yet despite the tranquility, there was a gnawing emptiness in her heart. After 30 years of service, Tessa had retired from her veterinary practice. The decision had been hers, but now as she sipped her morning coffee, the weight of quiet retirement pressed heavily on her. She missed the rhythm of her old life, the challenge of diagnosing illnesses, the relief in a pet's eyes after recovery, the busy days at her clinic. In its place was an unsettling stillness, a silence she wasn't sure how to fill. Though the slower pace of life in Kingston seemed ideal for someone winding down, Tessa found herself struggling to adapt. It wasn't just the lack of routine, it was the feeling that perhaps she had lost her purpose. The phone no longer rang with calls from frantic pet owners, and the emails were fewer, more mundane. No longer needed in her profession, Tessa often found herself staring out the window, wondering what her next chapter might look like. But today, there was something else occupying her thoughts. Anna, her daughter, had just returned home, freshly divorced. Tessa was glad to have her back, though she couldn't help but feel a twinge of concern. Anna's marriage had unraveled in a way that left wounds both visible and invisible. It had been a painful and public divorce, and Tessa knew that her daughter was struggling with the transition. Though she would never admit it, part of Tessa's loneliness came from her worry for Anna's emotional well-being. She glanced over her shoulder toward the front door, waiting for Anna to emerge. Tessa didn't want to rush the healing process, but she could sense the sorrow her daughter carried. The way her bright smile seemed more forced than usual. There was an uneasiness in the air, and Tessa was determined to help, though she wasn't sure how. Later that morning, over cups of hot coffee, Tessa and Anna settled into the worn armchairs in the living room. The conversation began easily enough, with Anna telling her mother about her new job at the Kingston Gazette, a local newspaper she had recently joined as a journalist. Tessa smiled, proud of her daughter's resilience, but the worry was still there.
You've always been good at writing, Anna.
Tessa said, trying to mask her concern behind a compliment.
I'm glad to see you're finding your footing again.
Anna smiled weakly, looking down at her coffee cup.
I'm making it work, Mom. It's not much, but it's something. The town's small, and the stories are, well, let's just say I'm learning a lot.
Tessa nodded, unsure of how to respond. She had always been proud of Anna's independence, but part of her wanted to tell her daughter that it wasn't too late to change direction, to take a different path. There was a moment of silence before Anna spoke again, her voice softer this time.
How are you doing, Mom? Really?
Tessa hesitated. How could she explain the emptiness that seemed to have taken root?
It's quiet, Anna. Too quiet. I've been used to running a practice for years, and now? I don't know what to do with myself. I feel like I've lost my place in this town.
Anna studied her mother with a compassionate expression.
I know it's hard, but you've got so much to offer, Mom. You've spent your whole life caring for animals, helping people. You don't just have to stop because you're retired.
Tessa sighed.
I don't know. Maybe I don't feel needed anymore.
Maybe you don't see it, but you're still needed. Just because you're not a vet anymore doesn't mean you can't still make a difference. People here love you. They remember all you've done.
Anna's words sank in, and for a moment Tessa felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps there was still a place for her in Kingston, even if it wasn't in the capacity she had once known. The afternoon unfolded in an unexpected way. A commotion outside drew their attention, and Tessa was immediately curious. The sound of children's laughter mixed with shouts reached the window. Anna stood, setting her coffee down, and moved toward the door.
What's going on?
Tessa asked, following her daughter outside. As they stepped into the yard, they saw a small group of children gathered near the edge of Palmer Woods. Isaac Henderson, a local boy with a reputation for his curiosity, waved at them as they approached.
There's a cat.
Isaac called out.
It's acting all weird, like it's sick or something.
Tessa raised an eyebrow. A sick cat? It wasn't unheard of, but the timing of this incident felt strange. She and Anna exchanged a look. Both of them were drawn to the potential of the situation. Tessa's veterinary instincts kicked in, and Anna's journalistic curiosity flared. The two of them made their way toward Palmer Woods, following Isaac and the other children. As they approached the trees, Tessa noticed the distinct shape of a cat sitting eerily still in front of an old stone wall, its green eyes fixed intently on the crumbling structure.
It doesn't look right.
Tessa muttered as she crouched beside the cat. It was a sleek tabby, its fur glossy yet unkempt, and it appeared to be unwell. The cat didn't respond to Tessa's voice or gentle coaxing. It simply stared at the stone wall, unmoving, as though it were waiting for something.
What's it doing?
Anna asked, kneeling beside her mother.
I'm not sure,
Tessa replied, her voice filled with concern.
but this behavior is odd. It's not just sick, it's fixated on something.
The stone wall was old, almost as old as Kingston itself. It marked the boundary of the town's original settlement, a remnant of history that most locals barely remembered. But as Tessa studied the cat, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more at play. The cat's posture, the intensity of its gaze, all felt deliberate. Anna, ever the reporter, pulled out her notebook and began documenting the scene.
Mom, what could it be?
Tessa shook her head.
I don't know, Anna, but there's definitely something off about it. This cat isn't acting like any animal I've ever seen.
As the minutes passed, Tessa continued to observe the tabby, while Anna continued taking notes. It was clear that something wasn't right. The cat seemed almost hypnotized, its unblinking stare locked on the stone wall, as if it were waiting for something to happen. The more Tessa looked at the wall, the more a strange sense of foreboding crept into her. She wasn't just worried about the cat, she was worried about what the cat was reacting to. The news of the strange cat quickly spread through Kingston, as word of mouth traveled faster than a wildfire. By the time Tessa and Anna had finished inspecting the animal, a small crowd had gathered by the edge of Palmer Woods. Neighbors, many of whom had lived in the town as long as Tessa, had arrived, curious about the unusual scene unfolding before them. Mrs. Henderson stood at the forefront, her eyes wide with concern as she glanced from Tessa to the cat and back again.
Oh, my goodness, Tessa.
Mrs. Henderson said, wringing her hands.
That poor thing. I've never seen a cat act like that. Shouldn't we call animal control? They'll know what to do.
Tessa stood up slowly, brushing dirt from her hands. She glanced over at Mrs. Henderson, then looked back at the cat, still fixated on the stone wall. Her gut told her that this wasn't a simple case of illness or injury. Something deeper was at play. She shook her head.
I don't think that's necessary just yet.
Tessa said, her voice calm but firm.
This cat's behavior isn't normal, and I'm not convinced that calling animal control will help. I want to investigate this a bit further before we jump to conclusions.
Mr. Peterson, an elderly man who lived 2 houses down from Tessa, raised an eyebrow.
You're saying there's something more to this than just a sick animal?
I don't know yet.
Tessa replied, her gaze shifting back to the cat's unblinking stare.
But I have a feeling that there's more here than meets the eye.
The group murmured in agreement, their curiosity piqued by Tessa's words. The tension in the air thickened, a palpable unease settling over the crowd. Tessa, as the town's former veterinarian, had a reputation for knowing animals. But this situation felt different. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something in the past, something hidden beneath the surface, that had brought this cat to the stone wall.
Maybe we should all just back up a bit.
Tessa added, raising her hand to gently keep the neighbors at a distance.
Give it some space. I need to think this through.
The crowd, though still full of questions, took a collective step back. Their eyes remained fixed on the strange scene before them, but they respected Tessa's wishes. She didn't mind the watchful gaze of her neighbors, but the cat's strange behavior required her full attention, and she needed space to figure out what was happening. Turning to Anna, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, Tessa gave a quick nod.
Anna, I need you to go back to the house and grab a flashlight and the first aid kit from the garage. I have a feeling we might need it.
Anna hesitated for a moment, eyeing the cat with unease.
You think it's hurt?
I'm not sure,
Tessa replied.
but I need to take a closer look, and I can't do that with all these people watching. Just go, quickly.
Anna nodded, her brow furrowing as she turned toward the house. Tessa could see the unease in her daughter's expression, but she had no time to explain further. Something about the way the cat was staring at the wall gnawed at her, and she needed to get to the bottom of it. As Anna disappeared down the path toward the house, Tessa took a deep breath. She walked closer to the cat, her heart racing. Her veterinary instincts told her there was something more here than a simple health issue. The cat's eerie fixation on the stone wall could not be ignored. There was a deep, unsettling energy surrounding the scene that Tessa couldn't explain. She squatted down again, staring into the cat's eyes. The animal's pupils contracted slightly, but it never shifted its gaze. Tessa knew that this was no ordinary cat. This was something different, something that had a purpose, even if she couldn't understand it yet. When Anna returned, the light from the flashlight cut through the shadows, illuminating the area around the stone wall. Tessa motioned for her to shine it on the gap in the wall, the one that seemed to catch the cat's unwavering attention.
What are we looking for exactly?
Anna asked, her voice low as she swept a beam of light across the stone.
I'm not sure yet,
Tessa answered.
but something about that spot.
She pointed to a small crack in the wall, almost invisible unless viewed from a particular angle. The gap was tiny, just big enough for a hand to slip through, but it was enough to catch the cat's attention.
I have a feeling this is important.
The cat let out a faint whine, its body twitching slightly as if acknowledging their discovery. Tessa's heart skipped a beat. The cat was aware of the gap. It had been fixated on it for a reason. As Anna knelt beside her, shining the flashlight on the small crack, they could see that the stone wall had been weathered over time, eroded by years of rain and wind. The gap was old, but something about it felt deliberate, almost as though it had been left there intentionally, hidden from view until now. Anna's voice was barely a whisper.
Do you think there's something inside? Something behind the wall?
Tessa nodded slowly.
I'm not sure, but I'm about to find out.
She reached forward, her hands trembling slightly as she touched the gap. It was cold to the touch, colder than the rest of the stone. She could feel a strange energy pulsing through the wall, and it sent a shiver down her spine. Her veterinary training had never prepared her for moments like this. What was happening here? What was she about to uncover?
Let me see what's behind it.
Anna urged, her tone filled with concern. But Tessa shook her head.
No, not yet. We need to be careful.
Tessa's mind raced as she surveyed the gap once more. It wasn't just a crack in the stone. It was a sign of something hidden beneath the surface. But what could it be? What was the connection between the cat's behavior and the wall? Suddenly, the sound of a soft mew interrupted her thoughts. The cat, still sitting motionless, turned its head ever so slightly toward Tessa, its eyes still locked on the gap. Tessa felt the weight of its gaze, more intense now, as if the cat was urging her to continue, to uncover the truth. Without another word, Tessa carefully moved aside some of the moss and dirt around the gap, her fingers brushing against the stone. Slowly, she began to work her fingers into the crack, trying to pry it open. The stone was old, brittle in places, but still surprisingly solid. It resisted her attempts at first, but as she pushed harder, a section of the stone wall shifted slightly, revealing a hidden recess behind it. The flashlight beam from Anna's hand illuminated something that sent a cold shock through Tessa's body. There, within the recess, lay something unexpected. She cannot pinpoint yet what it was, but it looked like something or someone was in it.
What is it?
Anna asked, her voice filled with awe and trepidation.
I don't know.
Tessa murmured, her heart racing. The cat's whine grew louder, more urgent. Tessa realized that the discovery was just the beginning. Whatever was inside could change everything. As Tessa continued to inspect the stone wall, she couldn't shake the growing sense of urgency building in her chest. The cat's eyes remained locked on the wall, unwavering and intense, as if it were waiting for something or someone to take action. There was a sense of desperation in the air, and Tessa could feel it deep in her bones. The cat's whine grew louder, more urgent. Tessa realized that the discovery was just the beginning. Whatever was inside could change everything. As Tessa continued to inspect the stone wall, she couldn't shake the growing sense of urgency building in her chest. The cat's eyes remained locked on the wall, unwavering and intense, as if it were waiting for something or someone to take action. There was a sense of desperation in the air, and Tessa could feel it deep in her bones.
Anna, I think we need to call the police.
Tessa said, her voice more urgent now.
Something's not right here. This cat isn't just sick or lost. It's guarding something. I can feel it.
Anna, who had been standing silently next to her mother, glanced at the cat and nodded. She pulled out her phone and quickly dialed the number for the Kingston Police Department. As she spoke to the dispatcher, Tessa kept her gaze fixed on the cat, whose body had begun to tense with a heightened energy. Its ears were perked and its tail flicked rapidly, as if sensing the same thing Tessa was. When the cat turned its head to meet Tessa's eyes, she froze. In that brief moment, she understood. The cat wasn't just watching, it was pleading. There was an undeniable urgency in its gaze, a silent cry for help that was both heartbreaking and mysterious. It had been standing guard over the wall for who knew how long, waiting for someone to notice, someone who could help. Tessa placed a gentle hand on the cat's back, her fingers brushing through its sleek fur.
I know,
She whispered softly.
We'll figure this out.
The cat's eyes never left hers as it silently communicated its role in this strange, unfolding mystery. It wasn't just an animal. It was a protector, a sentry for something important hidden within the wall. Tessa could feel the weight of its dedication, and for the first time, she realized that the cat had been waiting for her. It wasn't just guarding a physical space, it was guarding a secret. Within minutes, the police arrived. Chief Roberts, a broad-shouldered man with a calm demeanor, stepped out of his patrol car and quickly surveyed the situation. Behind him, a rescue team led by Captain Henderson assembled, ready to assess the wall's condition.
Tessa, what's going on?
Chief Roberts asked, his gaze flicking to the group of concerned neighbors before landing on the cat.
There's something in that wall.
Tessa explained, her voice tight with urgency.
The cat has been guarding it. I think it's trying to tell us something. We need to open the wall carefully.
Captain Henderson, a seasoned officer who had seen his share of strange situations, nodded gravely.
All right, let's take a look.
The rescue team set to work with methodical precision, carefully removing stones from the wall, while the cat's behavior grew more frantic. It meowed loudly, pacing in circles, scratching at the earth around the gap. Its once still demeanor was now replaced with agitation, as if the cat could sense the mystery finally being uncovered. Tessa stood by, her heart in her throat as the team worked. She could feel the tension mounting with each stone that was removed, the weight of the discovery hanging in the air. The cat's desperate meows echoed in the stillness of the woods, signaling its distress and the importance of what was about to be revealed. Then, just as the final stone was lifted, a small cavity was exposed. Tessa's breath caught in her chest. The cat's first desperate meow rang out, louder than before, as it scratched at the ground beneath the exposed cavity. The rescue team leaned in, revealing something wrapped in a blanket. Slowly, with the utmost care, they pulled the bundle free. Tessa's eyes widened in shock as the blanket unfolded, revealing a small, lifelike figure, its features hidden beneath the folds. The cat's whine softened to a gentle, almost relieved sound, its body relaxing as the figure was carefully lifted out of the wall. It had done its job. The secret was finally out. As the blanket was gently pulled away, Tessa's heart skipped a beat. Beneath the folds of fabric lay the unconscious form of a child, pale, dirt-smudged, and unresponsive, but unmistakably alive. His breathing was shallow but steady, and Tessa's veterinary instincts kicked in. The boy was alive despite having been missing for days. A jolt of relief rushed through her, mingled with confusion. The paramedics quickly moved in, assessing his vitals and preparing him for transport. As they worked, the cat, Toby, padded up to the child's side. It was as if the moment the boy's form was revealed, the cat's role in this mystery became clear. Toby, who had been on high alert just moments before, now seemed almost serene. His gaze softened as he approached Owen's body, rubbing his head against the boy's face, purring gently as if to reassure him. Tessa could see the deep bond between the two of them, a connection that had been forged in silence over the past few days. Toby's purring grew louder, as though encouraging the boy to awaken, and he nuzzled Owen's hand, seeking contact. The paramedics paused for a moment, surprised by the cat's gentle affection. It was clear that Toby had been guarding the child, waiting for someone to help, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth.
Is he all right?
Anna asked, her voice thick with emotion as she stood beside her mother, her eyes never leaving Owen. The realization hit her like a wave.
That's Owen Griffin,
Anna whispered, her voice barely audible.
the missing child. He's been gone for days. No one thought to check here, at the old wall.
Tessa nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of the discovery. How had no one thought to look in this area? The stone wall had stood as a silent witness to the disappearance, and Toby had been its keeper, protecting the child until the moment he was found. The cat's loyalty was evident in the way he clung to Owen now, his purring a sound of both comfort and relief.
Why here?
Anna murmured, her gaze flicking from the cat to the boy.
Why did the cat bring us to this wall?
Tessa could only shake her head. There were no answers yet, just a deep feeling that somehow this cat had known exactly what it was doing all along. As the paramedics carefully lifted Owen onto the stretcher and began preparing him for transport, Toby hesitated. His loyalty was torn between staying with the boy and following Tessa, who had been his trusted companion during this ordeal. Tessa could see the internal struggle in the cat's eyes. Toby had formed a bond with Owen that went beyond simple affection. It was a protective, unconditional love.
It's all right.
Tessa said softly. Kneeling beside Toby, she stroked his fur gently, offering him comfort.
We'll go with him.
Toby's tail flicked, and he padded over to Owen's side, unwilling to leave him alone. With a soft, mournful meow, the cat climbed into the ambulance alongside the paramedics, settling beside the boy as they drove to the hospital. Tessa, with Anna close behind, climbed into another car and followed. At the hospital, the Griffins, Owen's parents, were already waiting. Their relief was palpable when they saw their son, alive and breathing, being wheeled into the emergency room. The gratitude in their eyes as they turned to Tessa and Anna was overwhelming.
I can't believe it.
Mrs. Griffin said, her voice shaking with emotion.
You found him. You brought him back.
Tessa smiled softly, but her heart ached as she thought of the role Toby had played.
It wasn't just me.
She said,
Toby, this cat, he's the one who brought us here. He's been guarding Owen.
The Griffins exchanged a look of disbelief, then turned to the cat, who had not left Owen's side since the moment he was discovered. Toby was now lying beside the boy in the hospital bed, his eyes half closed, but his purring was constant and soothing.
Owen's been asking for him.
Mrs. Griffin said.
He keeps asking for the cat. He says he's been his protector.
Tessa nodded, her heart swelling with pride for Toby.
He has. Toby has been looking out for him, keeping him safe all this time. And now it's time for Owen to heal.
The days that followed were filled with visits from the Griffins, as well as news from the authorities. Toby's past began to unfold in pieces. The police had learned that Toby had once belonged to a family in another state, the Harrises, who had been desperately searching for him after he had run away. As it turned out, Toby had traveled over 2,000 miles to find Owen, and his journey had led him right back to Kingston, to the wall where he had stayed by the boy's side. Tessa was moved by the story of Toby's journey. It wasn't just a random twist of fate that had brought the cat and the boy together. It was a bond that transcended distance and time, a connection that had been waiting to be discovered. Toby had found Owen, and in doing so, had brought him back to safety. Owen, though still recovering physically, was beginning to share his side of the story. When Tessa visited him at the hospital, he spoke quietly, his voice still weak.
Toby stayed with me.
Owen said, his eyes filling with tears.
He never left, even when I was so scared. He was there.
Tessa listened quietly, her heart heavy.
You were never alone, Owen. Toby kept watch over you.
The boy smiled faintly.
I knew he was watching, I could feel it.
It was in that moment that Tessa understood. Sometimes purpose finds you when you least expect it. Toby had come into Owen's life when he needed him most, and now he was helping Owen heal in ways that no one else could. As the Griffins and Tessa continued to discuss the situation, a thought began to form in Tessa's mind. She had learned that the Harrises, Toby's original owners, had plans to return to Kingston. Tessa proposed an idea that would allow Toby to continue living with Owen until the Harrises were ready to relocate.
What if we arrange something?
Tessa suggested.
We could work out a shared custody arrangement. Toby can stay with Owen until the Harrises get here. It would give both families time to adjust, and it would allow Toby to continue being with Owen as he heals.
The Griffins agreed to the arrangement, grateful for the opportunity to keep Toby with Owen. And so, a new chapter began for both families. A chapter built on gratitude, healing, and the unbreakable bond between a boy and a cat. As Toby recovered physically and emotionally, he continued to be a steady presence by Owen's side, helping him heal. The journey that had brought them together was not just a story of survival. It was a story of love, loyalty, and the unexpected ways in which life can change. For Tessa, Anna, and the families involved, it was a reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who silently watch over us, waiting for the right moment to step in and make a difference. As the weeks passed, Toby's role in Owen's recovery became a symbol of healing, not just for the boy, but for the entire community. The bond between the two had inspired something much larger than anyone had expected. Tessa, recognizing the profound impact of their story, began to envision a place where animals and people could come together to heal. Her dream of opening a wellness center for both pets and their owners became a reality. The center was a sanctuary where animals like Toby could help guide their owners through recovery, providing comfort, companionship, and hope. Toby, ever loyal, continued to play a central role in this new chapter. His presence was a constant source of healing at the center. He would visit with families and pets, offering his quiet companionship to those who needed it most. Whether it was a nervous dog recovering from surgery or a family coping with the loss of a pet, Toby's soothing purrs and gentle demeanor made him an invaluable part of the healing process. His journey had come full circle, from being the protector of one lost child to becoming the heart of a community's recovery. Tessa found herself reinvigorated by the center's success, discovering a new sense of purpose in this work. She was no longer just a retired veterinarian. She was now a guide for families and animals alike, helping them heal and grow stronger together. As the Wellness Center flourished, Tessa couldn't help but reflect on how far she and Toby had come. What had started as a mysterious encounter with a lost child had blossomed into a lifelong mission of healing. The true significance of Toby's impact became most evident during a community celebration held at the center. It was a holiday gathering, a moment for the town to come together and give thanks for the past year. The Griffins, Tessa, Anna, and many other residents were in attendance, sharing food, laughter, and joy. As the festivities continued, Owen stood up to make a small but heartfelt speech.
I don't think words can ever fully express how much Toby has meant to me.
Owen began, his voice filled with emotion.
He brought me back to my family, and now he's helping so many others. Toby is more than just a cat. He's a symbol of healing, and I'm proud to call him my friend.
The crowd cheered, and Toby, who was curled contentedly in Owen's lap, meowed softly in response, his presence bringing warmth and peace to everyone around him. That night, as the community celebrated, it was clear that Toby's legacy would endure far beyond the walls of the Wellness Center, continuing to inspire and heal for generations to come. When Toby set out on his extraordinary journey to find Owen, no one could have predicted the emotional toll it would take on both him and the boy. Owen had been through unimaginable trauma, and the separation from his beloved cat had deepened the emotional scars he carried. On the other hand, Toby, who had been so steadfast in his devotion, was also suffering in his own way. He had always been a cat of few words, an independent soul, but in the wake of the separation, his anxiety was palpable. His journey across the country, the trials he endured, and the emotional strain of finding Owen and reuniting with him took its toll on both of them. It was clear that healing was needed. When they were finally reunited, it was as though the pieces of a broken puzzle clicked back together. Toby's calm presence became a source of comfort to Owen, and the bond between them grew even stronger. But as Tessa watched the two of them, she knew that the healing process wouldn't be immediate. Both Toby and Owen had endured significant emotional trauma that would require time, understanding, and the right kind of care to overcome. Toby's journey was far from over. Despite his triumph in finding Owen, he wasn't immune to the effects of trauma. His attachment to Owen had always been deep, but the separation had left emotional scars that needed attention. That's when Tessa suggested that both Toby and Owen go through emotional therapy to address the psychological toll their separation had taken. The therapy was structured to help them process their experiences, build trust, and strengthen their bond. Owen participated in sessions that focused on anxiety and trauma recovery, learning coping mechanisms for the lingering effects of his time away. Toby, too, received behavioral therapy, which was designed to help him manage his separation anxiety and reintegrate into the home environment without fear or distress. Together, they worked through their struggles, and over time, they both began to heal. It wasn't a quick fix, but the progress was undeniable. The therapy allowed them to address the emotional void left by their time apart and rebuild their trust in one another. As Toby's healing process continued, Tessa saw an opportunity to expand the mission of her wellness center. The center had originally been designed to provide physical rehabilitation for animals, but after seeing the profound impact that emotional therapy had on Toby and Owen, she realized there was a greater need for emotional support for both pets and their owners. The concept of emotional therapy for pets was still relatively new, but Tessa was determined to integrate it into her center's offerings. The Wellness Center quickly blossomed, becoming a safe space for families who needed emotional support for their pets. Tessa's work with Toby and Owen had proven that animals could play a pivotal role in helping people heal, and now more families were coming to the center with the hope of restoring their emotional well-being alongside their physical health. From anxious dogs and cats struggling with separation issues to owners coping with grief and trauma, the center became a sanctuary for both pets and people alike. What started as a personal journey for Toby and Owen had now become a community-wide movement. The success of the therapy sessions for Toby had inspired other families to seek similar treatment for their pets. People who had never considered emotional therapy for their animals began to recognize how the emotional well-being of pets was just as important as their physical health. Tessa's center quickly became a hub for these transformative therapies, and the town of Kingston was not only healing physically, but emotionally as well. The healing power of love was celebrated in full force during a community gathering held in Toby's honor. It was an event that brought together people from all walks of life, families who had experienced the power of Toby's story, along with local leaders, animal experts, and therapists who had worked with Tessa and the Wellness Center to bring emotional therapy to the forefront. The gathering was held in the town's park, where the air was crisp with the early winter chill, and the smell of hot cocoa and baked goods filled the air. During the celebration, Owen stood up and addressed the crowd. He spoke about the profound impact Toby had had on his life, not just as a pet, but as a true companion and hero. His voice wavered with emotion as he shared the depths of their bond and how Toby had helped him find his way back from trauma.
Toby is more than just my cat.
Owen said.
He's my protector, my healer, and my best friend. I can never thank him enough for everything he's done for me.
As Owen finished his speech, the crowd erupted into applause, and Toby, sitting calmly by his side, was showered with love and affection. It was a moment of pure gratitude, a reflection of the deep impact Toby's journey had made on the lives of everyone who had followed it. The celebration was not just for Toby, it was for the entire town, which had come together to heal, thanks to the courage and determination of one remarkable cat. As the snow fell gently around the park, Tessa took a moment to reflect on how far she had come. Her retirement had been filled with unexpected turns, and while she had initially struggled with the quietness of it all, Toby's journey had given her a new sense of purpose. The Wellness Center had become a beacon of healing, not just for animals, but for people too. Through her work with Toby, Tessa had discovered a passion she hadn't realized was missing from her life. She was now able to combine her love for animals with her desire to help others, offering a unique service that bridged the emotional needs of both pets and their owners. Toby's legacy would live on in the Wellness Center, which would continue to offer healing to those in need for years to come. As Tessa watched Owen and Toby play in the snow together, their laughter echoing in the air, she knew that the bond between them was unbreakable. Toby had proven that even the quietest of heroes could make the greatest impact. His journey, full of love and loyalty, had not only saved Owen but had brought healing to an entire community. And for Tessa, it was a reminder that sometimes life's greatest purpose finds you when you least expect it. As Toby and Owen played together, Tessa smiled, knowing that the future was filled with endless possibilities for healing and connection, both for pets and for the people who loved them.